What the hell is he doing in your bed?
We are not letting him sleep on the table!
I am!
Ugh! Liru kicked me in the side and I hit the floor, feeling a great pain in my waist. I looked up to see Liru standing over me, smirking.
Time for school for you?
I quickly moved my finger to create a symbol mid-air, and the menu opened. Luckily, I wasn't late. It was about 10 minutes after I usually woke up. I quickly tapped on the quit button, and slowly my vision began to flash black and white. My eyes flickered open, and I looked up at the ceiling through the blue glass in the 5-vision visor. My body felt a bit sore as I pulled off the headset, and I noticed something different. Chloe was sitting at the end of my bed, scrolling through her phone quietly. I set down my 5-vision, rubbing my eyes as I called her name. Chloe?
Oh, hey, dummy. Was wondering when you'd be up.
She said with a smile. Yeah, I spent the night in VR. You know, it's supposed to be a fantasy world, but their mattresses in there are 10 times better than the ones out here, I told her as I stood up. But as I took a step forward, my body collapsed. I reached out, grabbing the side of my desk as I fell forward. Chloe dropped her phone and rushed to my side, grabbing my other arm as I leaned over the ground.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't know what came over me. I just feel kind of sore.
Mom's not gonna let you miss school, especially after what you pulled with that whole money incident.
Still not over it?
Nope.
I'll suck it up then, I said as I broke away from Chloe and picked up my phone and brown hat sitting next to my laptop.
Loser!
I laid at my desk, continuing to play on my phone. Our last hour was free time, for me at least, and I had chosen to just mess with my phone since I was caught up on homework. However, the kids that were finished with their work and others who just didn't care didn't want to let me. One of them walked by and snatched my phone from my hand, throwing it across the room until it luckily landed on an empty desk. I got up and he pushed me against the wall. It was then that he noticed the bandaged wrist.
Suicidal little cunt. So that's what you've been doing locked up in the bathroom all the time. If you wanna fucking die, then do it already.
That was it. I punched upward and nailed the guy in the jaw. He stumbled back and tripped on my bag. After falling to the floor, his 2 friends went for me, grabbing my arms. Slowly, a small shard of glass began to extend from his sleeve as the boy's smile grew.
You just made a big mistake.
But before he could drive the shard into my wrist, a hand grabbed onto the boy's wrist. My friend came from behind and pushed the boy against the wall, glaring at the 2 others that held me down.
Let him go. I'd prefer not to get into any more fights today,
he said, staring into the bully's eyes with an intense hatred. The 2 walked away from me, going to the other side of the classroom with the boy. My friend, however, looked at me.
You really had to punch him?
Not like you'd do anything different, I muttered as I sat back down at my desk.
I wouldn't have punched him. Would have shot the son of a bitch,
he said as he sat down at the desk next to me. He threw me my phone and I caught it. Isn't that a little extreme?
For some people, sure. Not for me, though.
He answered.
James probably sent the 2. I don't know why they always focus you.
It's probably because I'm easy. I'm basically a walking target with these noodle arms. My friend reached into his backpack and pulled something out of his front pocket. It was a combat knife, the blade a ruby red color and the handle black.
Take it.
Isn't that illegal? I exclaimed. I can't take that. But he continued to hold it out.
A dying man told me to give it to someone who needs it. You are that someone. I won't always be here to swoop in at the last moment and beat some kid up, so take the damn knife and protect yourself.
He wouldn't let me say no, so I finally took the knife. I slipped it into the side of my backpack before the teacher could see anything, and my friend smiled.
Gotta go. Friend's waiting for me. Stay safe, Dylan.
He got up out of his desk and grabbed his satchel from beneath it. I watched as he walked out of the room, his hat covering most of his face. You know, I thought to myself, I still don't know his name. Maybe Randall, or Steve, or Bob. Yeah, it's probably Bob. However, a few seconds later, the teacher began speaking, going up to the desk at the front of the class. The students quieted down quickly.
All right, class. Before we leave, we will be recalling the day the world changed. Well, the years.
People looked forward to the story, even though some hated the outcome. The story of how one country came to an end and a new one rose from the ashes. Everyone listened closely, and the teacher began her story.
3 years ago, the country of America, along with Mexico and Canada, were destroyed. The combined forces of North Korea and Russia destroyed them and took over the rest of the eastern side of the world. Almost every single American was killed, save for around 200 scattered survivors. Several settlements were built around the destroyed country, including one in Mexico and another in New York. 9 months after, North Korean and Russian forces found a large group of survivors that escaped America. A year after that, the leaders of North Korea and Russia were killed by those same survivors that had organized into a strike team.
A few people scowled when she mentioned those men, but most people continued to listen.
Those group of survivors reformed this world. This combination of old countries are now known as True Korea, and our leader, our supreme leader, is one of these survivors. The rest hide among us, ready to defend this country against new threats.
It sounded like something out of a superhero movie. Only thing was, it was all true. I got up with a smile, grabbing my backpack and rushing towards the exit to the classroom. But as I ran past the sink and mirror on the side of the room, I came to a small realization. I was smiling. For once in my life, in this cold, dark building, I found a reason to smile. And just looking at my reflection, seeing myself smile, made me smile even more. And so I immediately ran out of the class, slipping through the crowd of students with my slender figure towards the exit at the end of the hall. I had people waiting for me at home, cooped up in that plastic headset lying on my bed. It was time for me to leave this world as Dylan Bell, and return to a different one as Aldren. The glittering digital sky shone brightly above the 5 of us as we trekked across the fields, venturing out into the wilderness once again. Gone were we from the safe haven that was Bandora City. Now we were vulnerable to attack. But with Jack, we shouldn't have to worry. After hastily packing our bags, we set off, leaving the city almost immediately after Jack arrived. He didn't have anything else to do, so he came with us. But one thing I still wanted to know was our destination. Where exactly are we going? I asked Liru. She sighed.
If you must know, we're heading back to the Warlock Forest.
Didn't we already leave there? Why are we going back?
Well, if we really are embarking on this boss-killing quest, we're gonna cut out some of the traveling distance. This map is extremely diverse. It's not like other MMOs with fast travel points around every street corner.
Liru explained. So then where are we going? I asked. Liru stopped, reaching into her brown satchel and retrieving a small brown piece of parchment. She opened it up to reveal a large map detailing the entire region. The glittering city of Bandora marked the center, and to the southwest was the Warlock Forest and Varlin Village hidden within it.
Now, there are 5 bosses in this game, one in each of the main areas. The Frost Plains, Mortar Swamps, Jungle of the Stars, and Crystal Desert. Right now, we're heading to the desert,
she said, pointing to an area to the southeast of Bandora City.
But if we're going to the desert, why are we going in the complete opposite direction?
Kira asked, raising her hand like a child.
Am I correct to assume that our destination involves teleportation of some sort?
Liru nodded.
Yup. So, along with the main bosses, there are an array of mini-bosses scattered across the world as well, some of them guarding divine treasures. The one we're aiming for, the Hornet Queen, is guarding a portal that'll take us straight to the Crystal Desert.
My body froze, and I asked, Hornets? Like bees? Liru looked at me and smirked faintly.
Yup. Why? Are you afraid?
Just a little, I admitted.
Well, you better hope someone's carrying bug spray.
Liru said with a smirk as she stuffed the map back into her back and continued onwards. Kira frowned at her sister before following behind, Kieran right behind her. Jack patted me on the shoulder as we continued.
Don't worry. She's just exaggerating. As long as you're careful, those huge stingers won't get anywhere near us.
Huge? I asked.
Oh.
He said before clarifying.
Yeah, like most things in this game, they're nothing like they are in the real world. The bees here are like the size of a cantaloupe. Kinda like Terraria. You ever play?
I gulped. No. He chuckled before leading me along.
You'll be fine, Aldren. You're a competent swordsman, especially with that whole fiery thing you've got going on.
You ever gonna give me some exposition on that, by the way? Jack cleared his breath before speaking in a voice very akin to a Jedi.
The ability you speak of is not one heard of in a long, long time. It is known as a player's killing form. Similar to an adrenaline meter, it is a special short-term power that activates when a player's heart rate rises to an exponentially high rate, such as in a life-threatening situation. That player gains a sudden boost of power, which is what you experienced before.
So it's normal, I asked.
Well, it's not normal, but not unheard of. It was a feature that was bugged in the early stages of the game due to how lifelike the game was and how easily it would be enabled. That and the side effects.
Side effects? I questioned.
Well, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a boy decided to take advantage of this ability, using it in pretty much every fight he got into, whether it was against a werewolf or a slime. When he took off his headset, his head was pounding. His muscles were weak and he was bleeding from his eyes. So that thing got patched and it's almost never been seen again.
So if it's patched, how did I just use it? I asked him. He shrugged.
Beats me. Maybe they added it back in, or whatever they used to patch it screwed up.
I frowned, staring forward as I tried to think that over. Was it just a fluke? A glitch? Or maybe they had added it back in and I was just the first to discover it. Whatever it was, I had to refrain from using it anymore. If it indeed caused the side effects Jack just told me, then I couldn't risk hurting my body any more than my anorexia was doing. As I stared forward at the forest in the distance, I spotted Kira walking alongside Liru, holding a small cat in her hands. She was humming quietly, rubbing the top of the life cat's head with her fingers. A smile faintly formed on my face, the scene too cute to ignore. Kieran then tapped me on the shoulder.
Might want to stop staring. Lyra's got eyes on the back of her head.
I scoffed. Yeah, right, she... Almost instantly, Liru reached for her blade, unsheathing the katana and spinning around. I ducked as her blade swung past me, cutting down a slime that was attempting to sneak up behind the three of us. As I laid on the ground, faintly whimpering, Liru sheathed her sword and scoffed at us.
Hurry up, boys. Not long now.
Kieran helped me up, and I frowned, still curious as to her cold-hearted nature. Why was it only towards me?
I could feel him staring at me, his eyes concentrated on my long blue hair swaying in the breeze. My ears perked up, sensing his gaze in my direction. But why? He couldn't be the same boy, could he be? Beside me stood my sister, rubbing her cat's ears with a faint smile. Her expression was so peaceful, so small, so adorably cute.
Alright guys, I need to come to a decision with this little guy.
She told us before asking,
What should I name him?
Marcus.
Kyrian suggested.
What about Fluffles?
Aldren added. Jack crossed his arms, concentrating on the cat.
I have a cat named Deku. Maybe call this one Midoriya.
Kira looked up at me.
What about you?
Just name it Socks.
Socks?
Kira asked, before looking down at the cat.
Why socks?
I don't know, I told her, frustratedly, before walking ahead a little faster than before. Just being around him caused all my built-up hostility to release. I didn't want to act like this towards my sister, nor Kyrian or Jack, but I couldn't help it. I just felt anger whenever I heard his voice, and I saw red when his eyes met mine. Was it justified? Or was my subconscious taking over? I whined quietly, holding my hand up to my head as my head began to pound. It still hadn't gone away, no matter how many status effect potions I had taken. As I walked ahead, I felt a hand grab onto mine. I violently shook it away before turning around to see Kira's eyes meeting mine.
What's going on?
She asked me, crossing my arms. Nothing.
Either tell me, or I'm sticking this little fluff ball onto you,
she said, holding up the life cat to my face. I deadpanned, staring into the cat's eyes as it muttered a faint meow. Kira, it's nothing. Trust me.
That's a lie, and we both know that.
She said.
I'm not a little kid anymore. If it's adult stuff, then just tell me.
I wanted to, but I couldn't. I told myself I would always keep that a secret no matter what happened. I just couldn't bring myself to tell her, not after all this time. Kira, please. Not now. She grabbed my hand and gripped it tighter.
Is this about Nicholas?
She knew. Or at least she had her suspicions. His name caused 100 blackened memories to force themselves to the front of my brain, and I let out a faint whimper before holding my hand to the front of my head again.
You never told me what happened. I only heard from Mom and the police. What's going on?
I knew I couldn't hide it. I had to tell her before my head could explode. I opened my mouth, and I began my story. I see the same eyes in him. I sat on the couch holding my game buddy and playing my game when suddenly a knock came at the door. I set it down and sighed, a bit annoyed that I had been interrupted.
Brooke, it's for you!
She shouted, running back up the stairs. I sighed, quickly adjusting my bedhead to look somewhat presentable before approaching the front door. I opened the door and was greeted by a young boy with pale skin and dark black hair. I recognized him as the son of the family across the street. He smiled at me, and I smiled back politely.
Hi. Are you Brooke?
Yeah. Who are you? The boy held up something, a silver chain necklace with a blue flower pendant. I gasped, my hands moving up to my mouth instinctively as I eyed the necklace. My mother had given it to me months ago as a birthday present, but I had somehow managed to lose it while playing outside with Kira. Where did you find it? The boy answered.
It was lying outside in the grass. Your name was on the back, and this is the only family with daughters in the neighborhood.
Thank you. What's your name?
I'm Nick. I live across the street.
From the moment I looked into his eyes, I saw compassion, friendliness, and just a twinge of frustration. I sat down on the couch watching the movie while Nick sat next to me. Kira was upstairs, either drawing or eating like she usually did, but Nick laid close to me, one hand holding mine and the other holding a cup.
Brooke?
Yeah, Nick?
Have you ever had any thoughts about the future?
No, not really. I mean, the most I've thought about it is maybe having a career as a singer. But when I looked to him, I looked a bit down on the bulge in his lap. His face turned red and he moved away, but I pulled him into a hug. Pervert.
Shut up, Brooke.
He said with an embarrassed laugh. It had only been 3 weeks, but these 20 days had been bliss. I noticed his hand was not holding mine anymore, and I watched as he slowly moved it along my leg. He moved it between my legs, and I closed the gap, looking at him as he sat there, looking embarrassed.
I'm sorry. I just thought we had gotten that far.
I mean, I was just surprised. It's fine, I guess. Just only that. He moved one hand and locked fingers with me while moving the other hand between my legs again. I felt a rush inside my body and quietly moaned for a second. This continued for a few minutes, but before I could ask him to stop, he went forward. Nick pulled me into a long kiss, locking lips with me and forcing his tongue into my mouth. I attempted to push away as this was going too fast, but he wouldn't move off my body. He forcefully held me down on the couch, and I was too weak to escape. Nick! Stop!
Just don't speak. Let it happen.
I had no chance to break away. He was holding me down, and all I could do was kick at my phone that laid on the floor. His hand moved away from between my legs and grabbed the sides of my jeans as he began to move them down.
Brooke!
He broke away immediately and went back to the position he had been sitting in as Kira came down the stairs. She stopped next to the couch and presented her question.
Do you have any money? I was gonna get some ice cream for us.
I nodded and handed her my wallet, which she took and walked out the door. As soon as it closed behind her, Nick looked at me. Nick, that was too much. I don't want to. Before I could finish, he grabbed my wrist and threw me to the floor, forcing me down. Nick pulled me into another kiss in which I couldn't leave. He began to unbutton my jeans, and all I could do was stare up at my father's sword hanging on the wall. My mouth came to a close, but her grip only tightened. I was barely able to walk anymore, my legs having finally come to a stop on the faint path in the middle of the fields. My eyes were closed shut. My head bent over to face the ground beneath me.
Hey, Liru. You good?
Asked a voice. I turned around to see Aldren, staring forward into his eyes, and the moment my eyes met his, I felt it. That same cold feeling. Like I was trapped, imprisoned in a sea of shame and self-doubt. So I ran. I turned around and took off down the path, breaking away from the group as fast as I could. I heard them calling my name. I heard my sister running after me, but I didn't care. I kept running and running right into a large black and yellow beast. I slammed into the ground, rolling into the dirt as the blurred figure floated above me. My eyes widened, and I watched as the large hornet shot forward, its stinger ready.
Sparkling butterfly beam!
A voice cried out. A pink blast shot forward, knocking the hornet aside as butterflies crashed into its body. Kira rushed into the clearing, eyeing the hornet as it spun around the two of us. Kira, get back! Kira! The hornet jabbed at her, and I unsheathed my blade, slicing through it with ease. The two halves spun out of control, smashing into the ground before exploding in a burst of blue sparkles and golden experience points.
You two okay?
Jack asked as Aldren, Kyrian, and him rushed towards us.
Not for long,
Kira said, turning around. I turned my head, my eyes widening as I stared upwards at a large tree sitting in front of us, stretching yards higher than the large trees surrounding us. Oversized golden hives hung from many of the outstretched branches, dripping full of honey and surrounded by swarms of those winged creatures.
This must be the hornet's nest.
Almost immediately, a small group broke off, heading down to engage us. Chiron raised his staff as the stinger shot forward, creating a force field bubble all around us. The hornet slammed into the shield, cracking the barrier but bouncing off without issue.
We need cover!
He shouted. My eyes darted to the right. There! The force field broke and we all darted to the right, running across the clearing towards an empty cracked hive that hung close to the ground. I led the group, Kira running behind me with her hand wrapped around Aldren's wrist. Kyrian and Jack followed, their weapons at the ready. Two hornets swooped down and Jack jumped up, unsheathing his scythe and slicing through the creatures with ease. Another two spawned, and Chiron spun his staff, firing a barrage of fireballs forward. While the two attacked, the three of us headed into the hive. We slipped through the small opening and fell forward into a large pool of honey that filled the hive. I groaned, splashing through the golden liquid as Chiron and Jack climbed inside. The young wizard raised his staff once again, forming a honey seal around the entrance while the hornet surrounded us.
Got it. We should be safe for the time being, but it won't hold forever.
Where's the portal?
Kira asked, standing beside a petrified Aldren. I gulped, staring at a small crack in the top of the hive. At the top.
Well, if we're gonna get out of here, we're gonna need a plan. I've dealt with mass waves of enemies before. It's not hard to slip past them.
Then let's get to work.